When it comes to romance, the French have the reputation of being passionate, first-rate lovers.
Well, we have a lot going for us, Jeannie. French is the language of love. Paris is the city of love.
But what's it like to really go out with a French person? Are dating rules different here in France? And what about French attitudes to marriage, divorce, and infidelity?
Join us for this episode of French Connections Plus, where we give you the ins and outs of the game of love à la française. The French have a long-standing tradition of seduction. It's seen as just another part of our pleasure-driven lifestyle.
Flirting is certainly a French national pastime, and gallantry is alive and well, with French men always holding the door for French women, for example. I always say I've never been so aware of being a woman as I am here in France, but that, of course, can also be a double-edged sword.
Well, it must be said that French flirting and chivalry, galanterie, have come under scrutiny in the wake of the Me Too movement, but that is a major topic we'll have to explore in another show.
Suffice it to say that the French take love very seriously. They're not ashamed to be romantic, and relationships can go a lot faster than they do elsewhere. For example, in my experience, if you're going to sit down for a flirty coffee with someone, there's a good chance they probably think you're going to sleep with them.
Well, that is true, but it's hard to generalize about dating in France because there aren't as many codes as there are, say, in the United States. There are no rules about how to act or when to call the person back, and PDA and sex are not taboo. That being said, I guess there is one rule, and that is that you don't date several people at the same time. In France, you're pretty much exclusive. But Jeannie, I am no dating expert, so I asked around. Here at France 24, we have journalists from about 30 countries. So these are journalists working here, living here, and interacting with the locals. If you want to find out more about what it's like to date a French person, chances are you'll find some good answers in the France 24 newsroom.
They are super romantic. On one of our first dates with my husband, we did, he took me on his scooter and we did like a Paris by night kind of tour around Paris, and it was really romantic. It really was, so not cliche at all.
The rules to dating should definitely be part of the British GCSE French syllabus because it's so different here.
When we kissed, I realized we were boyfriend and girlfriend pretty quickly. Normally it takes a while in England. I didn't even realize I was in a relationship until I was presented as his girlfriend. He's probably going to kill me for saying that.
French men go from 0 to I love you in 60 seconds, so it moves a lot faster.
I am half French. Unfortunately, I have no French accent when I speak English. I have noticed how the French accent works.
At the beginning, I found it the most amazing thing. I used to listen to his voicemails over and over and over and repeat. It doesn't work as well anymore. It wears off.
My fridge smells like rotten eggs all the time because he loves cheese.
How to be diplomatic about this? I think they complain a lot.
I don't think I would say je t'aime to a French boyfriend because it's so personal and you want to say it in your own language. If somebody ever says it to you, then that feels quite special.
So being French does have this added value with certain people. Other people find being French very annoying.
Oh, totally. Definitely.
If the dating stage goes well, the next step can be marriage.
But in France, many people end up having two weddings. That's because church weddings are not officially recognized by French law. That means that many people end up having a first civil wedding in a local town hall before saying their vows in a place of worship.
Like in other countries, couples get together, their families and friends, for a big party. But there are some things that make a wedding uniquely French. For instance, the pièce montée, or the croque-en-bouche. It's basically a pyramid of profiteroles that's sometimes served instead of a wedding cake.
There's also a pyramid of champagne glasses that turns into a bubbly champagne fountain. And when it comes to music, there's a very set playlist here in France for French weddings, going from waltzes to 1950s rock and roll music to French disco classics.
These days, the wedding rate is going down in France, and people are getting married at a later age. For instance, men, it's typically around 38 years old, and women around 35.
When it comes to the divorce rate, France has one of the highest in the world at around 55%. More and more people end up not getting married at all, but just living together. When it comes to babies, 6 out of 10 French children are born out of wedlock, something that's more and more accepted in this traditionally Catholic country.
In fact, in France, there's an easier way of saying I do with fewer strings attached. Since 1999, couples, both gay and straight, can enter a union called a PACS. a pacte civil de solidarité, a civil solidarity pact.
It's kind of like a wedding contract, but a bit more watered down, with some of the same legal benefits, but not all of them.
These days, the pact is mostly used by straight couples, but initially it was used by same-sex couples. That is, until gay marriage became legal in 2013.
Of the 228,000 weddings that take place each year in France, 3% are same-sex unions. The 2013 MARIAGE pour tous, Marriage for Everyone law gives homosexual couples the exact same rights as heterosexuals when it comes to marriage, adoption, and inheritance. While hailed by many as a major step towards equality, it also left the country deeply divided. Under the banner of La Manif pour tous, the demonstration for all, hundreds of thousands of mainly Catholic protesters took to the streets in defense of traditional values. Despite a strong show of resistance, a majority of French people support gay marriage, but key issues remain unresolved. The main sticking point revolves around something called PMA, medically assisted procreation, essentially artificial insemination and IVF. Currently, PMA is only open to heterosexual couples, but President Emmanuel Macron wants to make it legal for lesbians and single women too, an idea backed by France's top independent ethical body. Traditional Catholic groups say this is an open door to surrogacy, which is illegal, and have vowed to put up a tough fight.
Okay, Flo, we have to talk about the elephant in the room, infidelity. France is famous, or rather infamous, for being tolerant of adultery.
Well, it's a cliche that's encouraged by pop culture, because if you look at French films, it seems like everyone is sleeping with everyone. And then there's some very high-profile politicians who have had some very high-profile affairs. For instance, the former president, François Mitterrand, he had a whole second family.
Studies show that France is the least judgmental country in the world when it comes to adultery, and that attitude has had its effect on behavior.
Well, according to polls, a half of French men and a third of French women admit to having cheated on their partners. But that being said, some sociologists say that just because French people are more honest about cheating doesn't mean that they cheat more than other countries. They're perhaps just less hypocritical and more realistic about the challenges of monogamy and the possibility of having a flexible but healthy marriage, though that is debatable.
So just what does the future hold for l'amour à la française? Flo, you went to find out more.
Like elsewhere in the world, the game of love has been shaken up by online dating here in France. And to tell me more about that, I'm joined by Didier Rapaport. He's the CEO and co-founder of the dating app Happen. A few years ago, it was taboo to be online dating, but more recently, in the last couple of years, it's become completely acceptable. What do you think changed?
I think that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, being on a dating website was to be a loser. And today, everyone goes very easily on a dating. And this is not particularly French. I think this is really worldwide.
How has dating on your phone, say, changed the way we interact with people? Do you think it's changed the rules of dating in general?
Not really. In fact, you keep the behaviors that you are in your life and you transpose them into the digital world. So some people that are looking for more serious relationship, for their real special one, will have the same behavior on the app. At the opposite, it has added some new behaviors. For example, this idea about the immediacy. Okay? Today, people, they want immediate results.
What's interesting about Happen is it's an international company. Yeah. What have you noticed about French-style dating compared to other countries?
Okay, first there is something which is very common between all the countries. When you ask single why they are single, they all tell you because it is very difficult to find someone. Then we will notice different usage between the country. For example, if you are talking about the women reactions facing the dating, in some countries they will very easily do the first move, like for example in South America or in all the Nordics, when in France or other South European countries, Italy, Spain, women will wait being asked by someone.
So women are more passive?
More passive in France, and that was not really what I was thinking at the beginning.
The French have a reputation of being particularly good at romance. Would you say that's true on and offline?
Okay, we probably have a huge culture in terms of writers, in terms of about love, about romance. So it probably contributes to make our behavior more romantic. Now I think that love is something that exists all over the world, in all the countries, and even if it takes different shapes, forms, love is something that human being needs, and so.
We'll end on that philosophical word. Thank you so much, Didier Rapaport, for being our guest.
Many of you sent in your questions about love and romance here in France, like Beth Casey Murphy. She asks, is Valentine's Day a big deal here?
The French are divided when it comes to Valentine's Day. In fact, some people love to hate Valentine's Day. They see it as a purely consumerist holiday. But for those who give in to consumerism, they give the same gifts as they do everywhere in the world: chocolate and flowers.
I have a question for you, Flo. A few years ago, it was a really big thing to come to Paris and put a padlock on the Pont des Arts bridge across the Seine as a proof of your love. But now all those padlocks are gone. What happened?
Well, they were removed a couple of years ago, and good riddance. There were so many of these love locks that there ended up being 45 tons of them on the bridge, which endangered the bridge. And many Parisians saw it as a selfish lack of respect for the city. And also, who represents love with a padlock? It's so depressing.
That is a good point. All right, that's all the time we have for today's show.
Please keep sending me your questions. You can tweet me at Flo Villeminot, or you can send us a message on Facebook.
And we'll see you very soon for the next French Connections Plus.